Hello, this is Gray Hughes of Gray Hughes Investigates on YouTube. Please hit that like button, share, and subscribe. Don't worry, you guys, I won't speed up this one. I only sped up yesterday's video because it was like 38 minutes long or 40 minutes, and people just don't take the time to watch something that long in general. Some will, but most people don't. Like the average watch time on that last video was 10 minutes, and it's 27 minutes long. So it shows you that if it was 38 minutes long or something like that, people would have missed way more of it. All right, so today's video is going to be regarding new information that we found while doing the show last night. I was kind of revisiting some of these new documents that came out, and particularly the order on states motion in limine regarding text messages and 911 call. When I initially went through it, I kind of skimmed through and missed the key portions. So on the show last night we found that and then spent a lot of time talking about it because it really is interesting information. So let's take a look at that new information right now. After spending the evening out, roommates Dylan Mortensen, Bethany Funke, Kaylee Gonzalez, and Madison Mogan returned to their home at 1122 King Road in the early morning hours of November 13th, 2022. At approximately 2 a.m., they met up in Kaylee's bedroom and talked for a while before going to bed. Now, if you notice, we don't hear about Xana or Ethan at this point. The fifth roommate, Xana Kernolde, who was out with her boyfriend, Ethan Chapin, was not home yet. That is different than what I had always believed, because it sounded like everybody was home by 1:30, as we'll show here in a minute. The roommates debated going out to a food truck for a late snack, prompting Dylan Mortensen to send a text at 2:10 a.m. to an Uber driver she knew to see if he was driving. And ultimately, however, the girls decided to just go to bed. All right, so that explains that 2:10 a.m. message to an Uber driver. And it's interesting that Kaylee and Madison would be thinking, hey, let's go back to the grub truck, when they had just gotten home just minutes prior to that. They actually got home at 2, and then they talked about going back. Maybe they were just going to go with their friends so they could get something to eat, because they obviously had some food with them. They were just at the grub truck. They had the food in their hands, and then they got a ride home. I doubt they ate it all before they got home. It's a short drive. So they would have came into the house at around 2 o'clock with the food. So maybe at that point, Bethany and Dylan Mortensen were like, hey, we want to get some food too. So they called the Uber driver to see if he could come pick them up, but then they decided, well, you know what, forget it. Let's go to bed. So approximately 4 a.m., Dylan Mortensen heard strange noises and crying coming from the bathroom. Now that's interesting right there. What bathroom was she hearing crying coming from? The one that she could hear better and determine if it was crying would be the bathroom above her head, which would be the one next to Madison Mogan's room. But in the probable cause document, it mentions crying, and that it was likely Xana Kernolde crying because it was down there and Dylan could tell where it was. So was she talking about she could hear Xana Kernolde crying in the bathroom down there? And if so, how did she know that? Did she peer her head around the corner? I guess we'll have to find that out when the trial happens. And also in the document, a little bit further down, it says, during the foregoing exchange, Dylan Mortensen also attempted contacting Ethan Chapin through Snapchat. So that kind of explains why she was on Snapchat. I even said that on the show, that she likely was trying to communicate with the other roommates on Snapchat. And we said this a couple weeks ago. She again tried calling Kaylee and Xana, but neither responded. That's from the grand jury transcript. Dylan Mortensen then exited her room and began running towards Bethany Funke's bedroom. On her way, she noticed Xana lying on the floor of her bedroom with her head towards the wall and her feet towards the door. Dylan Mortensen thought Xana was drunk, and that was in the grand jury transcript. Once Dylan Mortensen arrived at Bethany Funke's room, they locked the door and both made additional unanswered calls to another roommate. At 4:32 a.m., Dylan Mortensen again texted Kaylee, please answer. All right, so let's take a look at that. So in my previous 3D model, Now you can see how I have Xana in the room in that position because I didn't know at that point. So now we're changing it where it looks like this. So Xana's feet would be towards the door, and she's laying like that, and I think the door was open, you guys. And I think she just didn't want to go into the room and check. And there's nobody forcing a door open or anything like that, even in the 911 call. Okay, so let's continue through these documents and try to put some of the pieces together. At approximately 11:50 a.m., Dylan Mortensen called her friend and asked her to come over and check the house because she was scared. The friend and her boyfriend Hunter came over, and they met Dylan Mortensen and Bethany Funke at the bottom floor of the house. Hunter started to walk up the stairs to the second floor. When they reached the second floor, Hunter went to the kitchen to grab a kitchen knife. When he came back out, Dylan Mortensen saw Xana again for a split second. And I just started bawling. I thought maybe she was still drunk and all asleep on the floor. And then Hunter told Dylan and Bethany to get out, get out. Now that's all on the 911 call. So I think there's a conflation in the story here of some of it being part of the 911 call and some of it being different memories. Like I think maybe it's possible that when Hunter went upstairs, he went to the kitchen to get a knife, maybe as protection to go into the room or something. I don't know what that signifies. And then he went into the room and he saw, just like the operator told them to do, they went upstairs together as a group and they looked. He didn't go, get out, get out, get out, twice, in two different time frames. That's just not reality. So they went up there. The operator said, hey, we need you to go look. So they went up and checked. And then Hunter goes into the room. I think he literally physically just walked straight in and was calling Xana's name, and she wasn't responding. Then he's in the room. He maybe even tried to wiggle her, and that's when Dylan kind of freaks out a little bit more. And then he goes over to Ethan, and then he realizes, oh my God, this is so much worse. And then he's like, get out, get out, get out, get out, and has everybody go downstairs. And he doesn't say what he saw because he didn't want to freak the girls out. Hunter told Dylan Mortensen and Bethany Funke to get out, who had started up the stairs. Also turned around after Hunter instructed her not to come any further. Hunter told Dylan Mortensen and Bethany Funke to get out. And then EA, who had started up the stairs, that's his girlfriend, also turned around after Hunter instructed her not to come up any further. They both went outside. Shortly afterwards, Hunter exited the house and told them to call 911. He was pale white and mentioned something about someone being unconscious. See, and that's conflated with the 911 call. That whole thing that we just heard happened in the 911 call itself, and they likely just don't remember because it was such a traumatic experience. There isn't two instances when this happened. At 11:56 a.m., Bethany Funke called 911 from her cell phone and spoke to Carolina Calvin, the 911 dispatcher. The call lasted 4 minutes and 11 seconds. So let's listen to that 911 call again.
11:55 a.m. 42 seconds, November 13, 2022.
911 location of your emergency.
Hi, something is happening. Something happened in our house. We don't know what.
What is the address of the emergency?
1122.
What is the rest of the address?
Oh, Kings Road.
Okay. And is that a house or an apartment?
It's a house.
Can you repeat the address to make sure that I have it right?
I'll talk to you guys. We live at the White, so we're next to them.
That's you.
I need someone to repeat the address for verification.
The address, 1122 King Road.
And what's the phone number that you're calling from? And tell me exactly what's going on.
One of the roommates is passed out, and she was drunk last night, and she's not waking up.
Okay.
Oh, and they saw some man in their house last night. Yeah. Hi, this is
And are you with the patient? Okay, I need someone to keep the phone, stop passing it around.
Can I just tell you what happened pretty much?
What is going on currently? Is someone passed out right now?
I don't really know, but pretty much at 4 a.m.
Okay, I need to know what's going on right now if someone is passed out. Can you find that out?
Yeah, I'll come. Come on, Bethany, you gotta go check. But we have to.
See, that's the part right there. They're going to go upstairs and check. And watch how all of this information is exactly what we hear, and this is exactly what we read in that document. Listen.
Is she passed out?
So let me just show you what's going on here. Watch. So you can see right here. That's the door that goes outside. So Hunter and Dylan and Bethany go up the stairs like this, and Bethany and Dylan likely stayed back here where Hunter kept going forward like my animation's doing. So imagine Dylan and Bethany stopping here, and then Hunter went forward into here and said, "Hey, Xana, you okay? Xana." And then he goes over and then he checks, maybe Ethan's over here on a bed or something like that, and checks him. He could be on the floor. I don't know how the bed was actually set up in the room. But he goes over and checks on Ethan over here, and that's when he says, "Get out, get out, get out, get out." And then they're going back this way, "Get out, get out, get out." And then they go back down the stairs like this. They're getting out of there. He didn't want them to see the horror that he witnessed himself. There's no indication that he forced a door open or anything like that.
What's wrong? She's not waking up.
Okay.
So right at this point, Dylan's standing up at the top here, and she can see that Hunter is in the room trying to wake her up, and she's saying, "She's not waking up."
Okay, one moment. I'm getting help started that way.
Okay, thank you. What's wrong?
See, I think that's Dylan right there. See, that's him coming back. They're at the top of the stairs, Dylan and Kaylee, and Hunter had just seen horrific sights and is saying, "Okay, get out, get out, get out." He literally was in there a little bit longer checking out, and now they're heading out. He was trying to wake up Hunter, he's trying to wake up Xana, and then he probably noticed these horrendous wounds, and now he's having them all get out.
Okay, and how old is she?
She's 20.
20, you said?
Yes, 20 here to
Okay.
them.
Hello?
That's Hunter.
Hello?
Okay, I need someone to stop passing the phone around because I've talked to 4 different people.
Okay, sorry, they just gave me the phone.
Is she breathing?
Hello?
Is she breathing?
No.
So he says no because he had seen that they're both dead and were stabbed many times. He's seen this already, but he didn't want to freak the girls out.
Okay.
Bethany, Dylan, I need you to talk to them, okay? I can't talk to them. I need you to talk to them.
Okay. Hello.
Okay. I've already sent the ambulance and law enforcement. Stay on the line. If there is a defibrillator available, send someone to get it now and tell me when you have it.
Say that again. There's a police here right now.
Okay. If there is a defibrillator available, send someone to get it now and tell me when you have it.
We don't have one. I think yes. Do you have a defibrillator? Yes, we have one.
Are you talking to the officer?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to let you go since he's there with you and can help you.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Okay.
11.
Yeah, so the whole thing makes complete sense now to me. Although I think it's a conflation in the grand jury testimony to the 911 call. I think the grand jury was like 5 or 6 months after, and they all remember going up, but the timing of when they went up and he said, "Get out, get out, get out," is different than what the 911 call indicates. I think at trial, if they just refresh their memories, that's what they would come up with. The pro-burgers will say, no, it was just a rehearsal. They did the same thing twice. And that just doesn't make any sense at all. So coming up the stairs, Dylan and Bethany maybe were right in this area. Hunter went down the room right over to there. That's a pantry. Dylan Mortensen's room is right here. And then there's steps that go upstairs just right there to the left. In fact, I think if I just go a little bit further. So right here is, those are the stairs that come up. Dylan Mortensen's room is right there. And this is the kitchen, and that's the pantry, and those are the stairs that go up. All right, so you can just keep that in mind for your reference. The house is actually fairly simple, to be honest with you. It's not as complex as people try to make it out to be. It's oddly shaped, but it's not complex, if you know what I'm saying. All right, so let's take a look at the probable cause and how that is affected by this new information. So it says, on the evening of November 12th, 2022, Chapin and Kernodle are seen by Bethany Funke at the Sigma Chi house on the University of Idaho campus. Now, I think if we just turn around right here, maybe if we go a little bit further, it's right over there. See that? Sigma Chi. And so that's the house that Xana and Ethan were partying at, and I guess Bethany Funke was likely there at some point. And Bethany Funke said that Chapin did not live at the King Road residence, but was a guest of Kernodle. Gonzalez and Mogan were at a local bar, the Corner Club, at 202 North Main Street in Moscow. Gonzalez and Mogan can be seen on video footage provided by the Corner Club between 10 p.m. on November 12th and 1:30 a.m. on November 13th. And then at approximately 1:30 a.m., Gonzalez and Mogan can be seen on video at a local food vendor called the Grub Truck. We've all seen those videos. At 318 South Main Street in downtown Moscow. The Grub Truck live streams video from their food truck on the streaming platform Twitch, which is available for public viewing on their website. This video was captured by law enforcement. A private party reported that he provided a ride to Gonzalez and Mogan at approximately 1:56 a.m. from downtown Moscow. So that's when they were picked up at the Grub Truck after getting their food, and then they were taken home. So they likely got home a little, just slightly after 2. They probably had their food in their hand, and then they go up to Kaylee's room, and then that's when Dylan and Bethany were up there and said, hey, maybe we want to go there too, and maybe they were going to go to the Grub Truck and get something to eat because the food looked good that they had. So that kind of fits in with that new information that we have. And prior to that in the document, it said Dylan Mortensen and Bethany Funke both made statements during the interviews that indicated the occupants of the King Road residence were at home by 2 a.m. and asleep, or at least in their rooms, by approximately 4 a.m. But what we just learned was that when Bethany, Dylan, Madison, and Kaylee were all up in Kaylee's room, Xana wasn't even home yet. So they weren't all at home by 2 a.m., but they do say that they're at least in their rooms by approximately 4 a.m. Or asleep by that time. This was the exception, however, of Kernodle, who received a DoorDash order at the residence at 4 a.m. And law enforcement actually identified the driver and spoke to them. So something to think about is it possible or likely that Xana and Ethan were captured on the 1122 King Road camera right there? Because if we go back just a little bit in this video, there's Sigma Chi. Did they walk this direction down King Road and then turn left on Queen? Right there. And if they did, that camera would have picked them up because that's a 24-hour running camera. It's not motion activated. So they would have been picked up there. However, there's also a possibility that they walked up these steps. So they crossed Banfield over there from the Sigma Chi, walk a little bit east, and then just cross the street and then come up these steps. So if we back it up just a little bit, you can see, let me move it just slightly forward. There you go. So there's this little path right here, and it comes up these stairs, and that basically takes you right to the residence there. And if they did that, they are not on that camera. And at that point, I don't know if you could tell exactly when they got home, but maybe it was much later. Maybe they were out until 3:30 and they come home, and that's when they order the DoorDash. You know, maybe they ordered the DoorDash much earlier than that, too, because I think when I called DoorDash a couple of years ago regarding this, it seems like they clean between 3 and 4. So maybe the order had to have been made prior to that. And if it was delivered right at 4 o'clock, you know, I mean, I guess we just don't know exactly how that went down. We'll hear that at trial, but maybe they didn't clean for exactly the amount of time, or, you know, did this person pick up the order way earlier? That'd be ludicrous to hold on to an order for like an hour before delivering it. So obviously they delivered something, and we're all assuming that it was the jack-in-a-box because that's what the bag was in the kitchen. However, I guess the meal could have came from anywhere, right? All right, back to the document. At approximately 4:17 a.m., security cameras located at 1112 King Road, a residence immediately to the northwest of 1122 King Road, that's the residence the homicide took place, picked up distorted audio of what sounded like voices or a whimper, followed by a loud thud. A dog can also be heard barking numerous times starting at 4:17 a.m. The security camera is less than 50 feet from the west wall of Kernolde's bedroom. All right, so we now have new information out there that the homicides, and also in these new documents, I just made a video out about it the other day, that 2 to 4 minutes is the time frame that law enforcement thinks it could have been done, the homicides. I totally agree with them. I think Kohberger knew the layout of the house, or at least he knew exactly where he was going to go. There was online images of the inside of the house as well on real estate sites. But just being in the back of the house, using logic, he could see that there's a kitchen, and then there was these people going up the stairs just to the right after you go through the kitchen, and then up above, Madison Mogen's room is up there at the right as the way he's looking at it, but at the top of the stairs you'd have to take a turn left, and he could see that. And I think Kohberger would pull his car out there and possibly wait and watch. He could probably see the bathroom is right outside of Madison Mogen's room. He could probably see from outside her getting out of the bathroom, walking into her room. You know, hopefully she had her curtains shut or whatever, but he knew where her room was. You know, likely she would get into the room and then shut the curtains, but he could see that that was her room, so he knew the layout. And it's not a complicated house. It really isn't. And then it says, Dylan Mortensen stated she opened her door for the 3rd time after she heard the crying and saw a figure clad in black clothing and a mask that covered the person's mouth. So isn't that interesting? The crying. So is that from the bathroom? It's just, I don't know. We'd never heard that she heard crying coming from the bathroom. And the only other reference to crying in this probable cause is the 3rd time she heard crying and saw a figure clad in black clothing and a mask that covered the person's mouth and nose walking towards her. Dylan Mortensen described the figure as 5'10" or taller, male, not very muscular, but athletically built with bushy eyebrows. The male walked past Dylan Mortensen as she stood in a frozen shock phase. The male walked towards the back sliding glass door. Dylan Mortensen locked herself in her room after seeing the male. This leads investigators to believe that the murderer left the scene. So she probably locked her door, but apparently he never even jiggled her doorknob or anything. And as we just heard, she ran downstairs to Bethany Funk's room, and they locked the door down there. But on the way there, she did see that Xana Kernolde was laying on the floor, and she thought maybe at that time that she was just passed out. But seeing that individual freaked them out, so they locked themselves down in the room downstairs, and they tried to get a hold of the different roommates at various times and weren't able to do so. And another interesting element as well, now that we know the time frame was around 2:17 or 2:18 when the dog was barking, Dylan Mortensen saw the person leaving the house. That was probably like 4:17 or 18-ish. If you look at it like that, look at this right here at 4:19:07. So it could be that he left the house at around like 4:18:30, something like that. Then Bethany Funk calls Dylan Mortensen for 23 seconds. And Dylan probably felt comfortable enough to talk because she saw that he had left the house. And think about it like this. At 4:19 and 7 seconds, Kohberger is still outside the residence at his car doing blood spatter mitigation. And then at 4:20, Dylan Mortensen calls Xana Kernolde. There's no answer. Then at 4:20, Dylan Mortensen calls Kaylee. There's no answer. Then at 4:20 and 28 seconds, Dylan Mortensen calls Bethany Funke, and they talk for 41 seconds. And about 20 seconds into that phone call, that's when Koberger's vehicle is driving away at a high rate of speed. And that would be right here. He's driving away, and Dylan and Bethany are right down here in Bethany's room, and the vehicle is driving away at a high rate of speed right here. It's seen at, I think it's 4:20 and 47 seconds. There it is. There's the vehicle driving away. And if we go back to that document, look at that. At 4:20:28, they're on the phone, and at 4:21 a.m., Bethany Funke calls Xana, and there's no answer. So at 4:21, he's probably about like right over in this area, and we know that at like 4:21:06 or so, it's right over here. Let me turn back on all of these, and let's see. 4:21:05. Sorry about that. So 4:21:05, the vehicle is seen based on its lights coming back around here at 4:21:05. Man, this stuff is really starting to come together. All of the little nuances and little pieces of time are being filled in. So thank you all very much for watching today's video. If you found it interesting, I find this stuff to be the most interesting of all in these cases where you start getting information that fills the gap in where there's so much missing information. Even though everything makes sense in order, we're now getting more pieces of information filling in the gaps. Thank you all very much for watching. Appreciate it. And if you hit that like button, leave a comment in the comment section. Let me know what you think. I would appreciate it. And as I always say, until next time, be safe out there.